Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It is Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan for a very anticipated Inside the Birds. We're going to recap the Eagles draft, their big trade, all their moves, and lots of things going on with the Eagles now that we enter post-draft period and get ready for mini camps and all of that. So we have a lot of information to get you. But first, we want to tell you this. Do you love fantasy sports? Adam, I know you love fantasy sports. I love fantasy sports. So if you're ready for a new challenge this year, Dynasty Owner is the new way to play fantasy football with real NFL salaries, adding the strategy of running an actual franchise. Dynasty Owner provides a unique and challenging experience that will test your skills as an owner and general manager. You'll have complete control over your team's future. You can build through the draft, make trades, sign free agents, and manage your team's salary cap. Can you create a dynasty of champions? Sign up now at dynastyowner.com and get started on building your dynasty. Now, listen, Adam, this is pretty cool. You can get 3 patents for fantasy sports on this, and it's the only league that uses real NFL salaries, all right? You can have a roster size of 30, a minimum of 25. They do a 25-round snake draft, a yearly 3-round rookie draft, and they have use of in-game currency, which is called their Dynasty Dollars, that you can use for free agency and trades. You start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and a kicker. So that's about as real as it gets. So it sounds like you're a big fantasy sports person. You and I both are, and I play multiple basketball, baseball, sometimes golf, but I mean, I really do like the almost the video game style ones now, where you're working with real money, real salaries, all that stuff. It's like you are literally like Howie Roseman trying to put together a team.
Yeah. So Josh Weinfeld, our business manager, and I had a call with Dynasty Owner a couple weeks ago. I love their concept. I've been in Dynasty leagues before, so it's more real. And this one uses real salaries, so that's super cool. Love the concept. It's easy to learn. And I love it, and we appreciate them being a new sponsor of ours. And obviously, you and I, and several of our thousands of listeners are big fantasy people because they've told us that over the years. So we love that Dynasty Owner is a part of this.
By the way, somebody reached out to me on Twitter, a listener of our pod, because it was right after Melvin Gordon re-signed with the Broncos, and I think he wrote like, "Bummer, Geoff, huh?" Because I'm a Javonte Williams owner in my Dynasty Football League, and I got rid of Alvin Kamara to take him on and keep him and be my running back of the future. Now he's going to be still fed most of the carries. We talked about this, but I would have preferred him not to have even a 1A or a 2 of Melvin Gordon's talent. So you would just rather it be like as many carries as possible for Javonte Williams, but I can't wait to see what he does in year 2.
Gordon surprised me is how well he played last season.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was that the new GM George Payton inherited his contract, and there was fully guaranteed money in the final year, so they couldn't cut him. And it's a good thing they didn't, because he did a great job. I'll give him his credit. He really. I remember when they drafted him. Remember he had the microfracture surgery.
Yeah,
and he was never the same. He became a grinder. His Cosell would always tell us, he's like, man, his style completely changed on what he was at Wisconsin when he's explosive. But Javonte's special. I've said it. I know that it's a total gamble, but I'm willing to do it. I'm taking Javonte Williams over Christian McCaffrey. I'm done with the injury history with McCaffrey.
Oh, God,
yeah, and in fact, it's Jonathan Taylor and no, I know Breece Hall going to the Jets. He's going to the first round in a redraft.
Mm-hmm.
And in a dynasty league, I'd have to think about this. I might take him 3rd overall, because in dynasty leagues that I've been in them, man, it's tough to get running backs, man, or keeper dynasty. It's really hard.
Don't be sleeping on that Najee Harris. They got new regime here in Pittsburgh. You think that you might get a little bit of a quarterback upgrade, whether it's Kenny Pickett or Trubisky. I shouldn't call that a definite upgrade, but maybe the offense will look a little bit different with an arm, somebody who can throw the ball down the field now, which should help. If those passes are completed, should help lighten things up for Najee Harris to give him a little space to run, because he is definitely a talented guy. But you're right, got some good young runners that you can sort of keep your eyes on for the future for dynasty leagues like this. As far as the Eagles draft and our content, I want to thank again not only the numbers that we got at them, which were incredible, but the comments. I mean, social media and comments aren't usually you don't usually get as many positive. You get the negative, but there were so many people who thanked us and appreciated the work that we had put out leading up to the draft, and then of course all throughout draft weekend. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who left a really nice comment, whether it was on YouTube or Apple or whatever, on Twitter for us, because we really, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, one guy said to us, he goes, "How did you guys know they were draft Jordan Davis?" I said, "We didn't. We just heard." I know you have some additional information on what would have happened if they would have kept both picks.
Right.
We when you're picking in the middle of the first round, there's no way you have to. We gave you a grouping on that. What was it? The Thursday morning show. You said, okay, who do you think they're going to draft? And we gave you Jordan Davis, McDuffie, and 2 other players because you have to. It's got to be a grouping. We just thought that though they're not always analytical with every pick, this just made too much sense for them where they're picking. We weren't sure if they could get the receiver that they might want. And Roseman, the Eagles GM, said he was asked during his press conference. He did say before, irrespective of AJ Brown, if they didn't get him, he said they weren't even sure if they're going to take a receiver there. So Jordan Davis was one that we thought was sort of interesting, and because of the Fletcher Cox situation, it just made sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know with any NFL team, not just the Eagles. So sometimes, look, I didn't know about Derek Barnett. Had no idea. He was never even in my thought process when you and I did the show for the Fanatic, because you had asked me who they're going to go with. I said I know he probably won't be there. It's not what they do, but I heard pretty strongly that McCaffrey's going to be the guy, and we checked after the draft, and that was true.
Mm-hmm.
But Barnett, okay, look, they got one past us. I didn't know, so that was cool. Unfortunately, it's checkered career, but he's back. But
Right.
we do appreciate, it makes all the hard work that Geoff and I and Andrew DeCecco is a very key contributor, and Q&A and Cosell and everyone who's contributed to our show and all of our platforms since we started in the spring of 18.
Yes, spring of 2018.
So we really appreciate your support, and without you guys supporting us, we're not going to be able to do it because we need it. We need it. It's not the most profitable business, but we're able to continue to bring in great talent because you guys are supporting us. So we appreciate it.
Speaking of that great talent, there will be one more, the Intel with Greg Cosell, who we've had on the platform now since I believe February. So it's been great having him go from free agency to NFL draft preview. He's going to do one more with us this week. It's going to recap, of course, the Eagles picks. We may get into some other picks around the league that were intriguing, but so make sure you listen to it. Even if you're not an Eagles fan, that's another thing. We had so many people reach out to us over the last 5 or 6 days that said they weren't Eagles fans, but they love the intel that they've been getting on all NFL teams. So Greg will come on with us. He'll finish it off. And I don't think that'll be the last you'll hear of Greg, until the season. What we've done in the past is an NFC East kind of outlook. We start with, one of the teams, Giants, Cowboys, whatever, Washington, do all 3, and then round it off with the Eagles as the 4th. So we'll probably wind up hitting that in May or June. And Greg's always been great for that, and people like those episodes. So we'll do that too. At some point, probably later this week, early next week, we'll start to get, now that the draft is over and free agency mostly is over, we'll start to do some of the roster breakdown shows that we do, how the competition looks going into training camp, where the Eagles still have holes, where they're strong. We'll get into all that stuff. For this podcast, we're really going to take a look back at the draft and provide some of the intel, maybe fill in some of the holes, because people have some questions about how you can go into a draft, for like the umpteenth year, knowing that you absolutely need to come out with a corner or a safety, if not both. And the Eagles didn't do that. So we have a little bit of information on that. Listen, and whatever you do with the information, you do with it. You're certainly welcome to criticize if you want, but we can discuss that, and we will. And then again, Greg's show will be up on Wednesday on our both podcast platforms. So we got a lot to get to, and I look forward to it. And thanks again for everybody who are hanging with us. So before we get into the draft picks, want to tell everybody about our new partner that we've talked about, Devacor. Over the last year, we've seen what's known as the Great Resignation. It's pretty much made it clear there's no better time to change careers than the present. Devacor is a Philly area. Big word there. Philly area family-owned career development company that helps guide hardworking professionals on the path to new and fulfilling careers. Unlike those big companies in the career development space that offer the same cookie-cutter advice and services, Devacor's certified career development team is hands-on, passionate, knowledgeable. They take pride in working closely with their clients to ensure that their experience is personalized and tailored to their needs. So whether you need a new resume, cover letter, CV, or you want to optimize your LinkedIn profile, or just work with a career coach, Devacor's got you covered in all spaces. So go to devacor.com/birds to schedule a free 15-minute career coaching consultation and to receive an exclusive 15% discount on your next order. That's devacor.com/birds. All right, Adam, let's get into the obviously we'll start day one. The Eagles take Jordan Davis, and then of course they at 13th overall they trade up 2 spots, and then with their second pick, 18th overall, they trade it along with a 3rd round pick for AJ Brown. And I think day one was a really good process on their part, right? I mean, they addressed 2 glaring needs. We went over the question marks about Jordan Davis, so there's no need to there's a weight issue there that they will have to deal with, and there's a guy who did not show a whole lot of proficiency or have the opportunity to rush the passer. Some of that because of the weight issue, some of that because of what they had at Georgia there. So no need to rehash that. But I think what's really important to focus on is if they can get this guy on the field is how widespread of an impact that he can have. We talked about how it impacts other linemen because he can occupy a lot of guys, right? Talked about how he eases the burden on the linebackers, which we'll get onto in a second, because if he can stuff those holes and make it easier for the linebackers to swarm and they don't have to get off the blocks of big offensive linemen, that's easier for them. Or if teams want to run to the outside because they don't think they can run up the middle on Jordan Davis, well, that benefits the linebackers. They don't have to go downhill, right? So, and then of course, here's a big thing that I don't know that we touched on enough. Defense is a game of mathematics. If you got a certain number of guys in the box to stop the run, that's less guys you have in coverage, and vice versa. We saw Jonathan Gannon play a lot of 2 deep coverage last year in the first half of the year, and he got bit in the ass trying to do it. He got run on. I suspect you are going to see him try to play a little bit more 2 deep coverage now when Jordan Davis is in the game against the run, because he'll have the ability to do that. And so when you take that safety out of the box and into your defense in the back end, it gives you more coverage. And when you have 2 safeties deep, Adam, you limit explosive plays and you protect your cornerbacks. So there's a lot of variables that go on with a guy like Jordan Davis if you can get him on the field and playing at the level he's supposed to play at.
Yeah, so the purpose of this show is to update every single player that they drafted, and we're going to give you more information than we did. We were just kind of reacting. We had a little bit of early intel. This is 48 to 72 hours since the first round, and we've got additional information on every player. And there's one person told me, a very strong personnel source, who said Jordan Davis gives you the ability to 2-gap. Do you want a 2-gap?
Yep.
Because he's a wall. I mean, he's so long. You have the ability to be multiple in your fronts, however you feel like you want to do it based on your personnel. And then he could be more matchup specific, Gannon, which I don't think he could do as well as we know he played a 5-2. That was not ever really in question. We knew that he was going to run a some of Zimmer stuff. He just could not run everything that he wanted last season because he didn't have the personnel. Now that you had the note last spring about Gannon really would like to get a nose.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Davis is more than a nose tackle, but he can do that. However you want to shade him, however you want to use him, there's certain things you can do with him. So there's the multiplicity of this front that you can do. You don't have to be so stuck on one certain front. I mean, heck, I know they ran a little 34 last year, not very much. I have no idea what the percentage was, but they were mainly 5-2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do things change now? We know things are going to be adjusted. We had note several weeks ago there could be some tweaks to the defense. Now, with Jordan Davis in there, and Kobe Dean, we'll get to him. We got some great stuff on him. You just wonder now that he's got better players up front. They're younger, they're talented. Does he have more confidence to do different things? That to me would be the thing, because he's got to be more aggressive on defense.
Definitely. Absolutely. I think I'll have the opportunity to do that. And you hit it on the head when you said he's more than just a nose tackle. You watch his tape, you realize he can do stunting, he can twist, he can line up in the B gaps. He's not. I know the comparison has been made to I always forget his name, the Packers guy from the 90s who weighed like
Oh, Gilbert
500
Brown.
pounds. Yeah,
Yeah,
Gilbert
Gilbert.
Brown, right. No, this is not that kind of guy. Again, I don't want to get too caught up in hyperbole, but it is pretty much true that I don't know that there's ever been a guy at his weight that did what he did athletically at the combine. So there's some historical data there that Gilbert Brown could never have reached on his best day.
Exactly.
That Jordan Davis can do. And I'm not trying to minimize Gilbert Brown. I mean, we've come a long way in the last 20 years with athletes and what they're doing. So I'm just saying it's not the best comparison. However, the weight and the bigness issue, that is fair. I mean, if this guy can only wind up ever playing first and second down in his career, then that's a miss for what the Eagles have expected. But let's talk, continuing our first round discussion here and continuing this discussion of how it just happens to be year after year after year that the Eagles cannot get that corner or safety. Adam, I was told looking into it that going into the draft, the Eagles, ideally thinking just draft picks, were kind of an ideal scenario for them. They thought at 15 and 18, if that's where they picked at, would be to get Jordan Davis and Trent McDuffie, the corner from Washington. We talked about him. They liked him. He was ranked higher on their board. He was in that mid to 15, 20, whatever you want to call it, area. And I have a feeling if the trade had never been consummated to get A.J. Brown, there's a good chance the Eagles would have taken Trent McDuffie at 18 if that's what they had done state. People can be upset about that, but then you can't be really you can't not, if you're upset that they didn't stay there, then you have to be upset that they got A.J. Brown. I don't think anybody wants to be upset that they went out and acquired A.J. Brown. So this is how it happens. And if you want to criticize, you say, well, if they didn't miss on receivers, whether it was Arcega-Whiteside or Jalen, then they wouldn't have to make that trade. They could have taken the corner. So that's a fair shot. That's a fair criticism.
I thought it's, you and I didn't discuss this. I was thinking about that earlier when I was putting down the rundown. I'm like, man, if they just would have got at least one of those guys right, they would have made this trade. But then I'd say, you know what? Who would I rather have? Okay, game over. We're going to get into A.J. Brown. This guy's pretty special. It's talking to Titan soldiers over the weekend. I sort of knew because I know the Titans pretty well, but until you get people on the phone and where they're able to peel back everything and just kind of be straight about it, you just don't find players like this. This guy's super duper special.
Yeah.
To this day, I'll never understand why they just didn't wait. Just because you're off on the contract doesn't mean. I mean, we're in early May. You couldn't wait till late July, and as he told our friend Teron Davenport of ESPN.com, he said that the number he was looking, he would have taken $22 million. Think about this; that's below market.
Yeah, that is below market. So you have to ask yourself why? Why were they offering him a below market deal?
I know.
We did go through some of the stats over the last 2 years that were different than his rookie. I mean, stats, yards per catch. Have gone down, like I think from 20 to 15 to 13. But it doesn't look like, I'm not saying he's a declining player. It could be the quarterback, could be the offense. I mean, obviously it's very Derrick Henry centric as the years have gone up. But he is 6'1", but still, you just watch this guy play and you know that right away he is one of the Eagles' most dynamic players if they can get the ball in his hands. Now, that's the key. Can they get the ball in his hands?
So with him, he missed 4 games last season. That's why he did not get over 1,000 yards. He still was making plays that when we talked to Cosell Wednesday morning, he'll give you what the tape study looks like. I've talked to Greg a lot about him over the years. The thing that blows me away of A.J. Brown is they almost run similar routes every game, and he wins every time. He's like a rock. You cannot move him. Like I don't care how tall the defender is. He's just so jacked up, and he leverages so well. I don't know if there's a better leverage receiver in the league, sort of like T.O. He's a shorter T.O., and he wins every time. And I don't know if you saw there's a video out there of A.J. Brown and John Robinson, the GM of the Titans, calling him after they picked him in 19. Really great back and forth. This is a special.
I did. It was great.
Really special guy. And his leadership is unbelievable. His practice habits are unbelievable. He sets the tone. He gives all out. I know that they because of he had double knee surgery last year, scopes on both knees. they would make sure he would get through every practice. And remember, the other thing, as you were talking about this, when Derrick Henry went down, it was so much easier to cover on the outside because you weren't worried about Henry. You didn't have to have 8 or 9 in the box.
Right.
You just didn't. Although Foreman did a good job, but you're going to play them differently, not without Derrick Henry. So that was a part of it. But this guy is so competitive. And I can tell you from talking Titan sources over the weekend, they're still heartbroken. My sense is they never thought this would happen. And I wonder, I don't know this, but I wonder if ownership balked at the money. I do wonder, because they're not a big market team like others. I do really wonder if they felt that there was a number they would go to and they would never exceed it. And because John Robinson said that, the GM, he said, like, we just were not going to get there based on where they were. But that's why I said, well, wait a minute. You're only in May here. Why can't you? I know nothing goes on between May and June, and he's not the kind of guy that's going to cause an issue. I don't know. I feel terrible for Titan fans, but Eagle fans, you guys got a special guy
here. Yep. I'm really looking forward. Looking forward to the plan. So there are players you say that you got to have a plan for that player, right? So I'm looking forward to see, because this is a player who specifically functions extraordinarily well in space. You watch a video. Can he make contested catches for a 6'1" guy? Actually, he can. He's pretty decent at it. Can he beat somebody on a deep post? Yes, he can do that. He's a full wide receiver, but his calling card, what he excels at, is that intermediary route. You're playing against his own. He splits the defenders, catches the ball, turns upfield, absorbs some contact, shakes out of it, adds an extra 20, 25 yards. The Eagles don't really have a player like that as a wide receiver, or at least no one's shown it yet. Even Devontae Smith, not that kind of player. Dallas Goedert is as a tight end, but he's also enormous. He's 6'4", 250, right? So to see a 6'1", 220 guy who can do sort of what Dallas does there, but then has an extra motor, an extra jet, is pretty phenomenal. It's been a while, I think, since the Eagles had a wide receiver of this kind of capabilities. That was not Alshon's game. Alshon was, I'm going to out-jump you, 20, 30 yards downfield and everything. So this is pretty cool. And so going back to the plan with Jordan Davis, what I'm really looking forward to is, and I don't know when we'll get we're going to work to get the intel. What is their plan ideally right now for Jordan Davis? Do they want, because we know he's not yet a great pass rusher, right? He's got to work on that, but he can be great on first and second down. So does that mean if his weight is under control and he shows up to training camp ready to go, that you're starting him on first and second down, and you are not starting either Fletcher Cox or Javon Hargrave? That's hard to believe.
Yeah,
I don't know how they're going to work that.
Well, eventually he'll be a base down player until he becomes a pass rusher. No one could give you any information on when that will be. It's more. There are a couple things. I'm saying.
What if the first play they see in the season opener is, I forget who? Well, the schedule's not out. What if that team comes out in 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, big running back? I mean, like,
sure.
Aren't they playing the Titans this year? Yeah, they're playing the AFC South, right?
Well, there you go. They play.
So let's say the first game of the year is the Titans,
okay.
And they come out with Derrick Henry and are you not having Jordan Davis on the field there? I mean,
well, here's what you can do. It's not about the first play of the game. It's just a rotation. Maybe you get him more snaps than you normally would if he's in great shape and he shows us in training camp in the preseason. Maybe you would play him more than you normally would in his rookie season, in his first game. And maybe they just get a rotation going early on here. And a lot of it's going to be on him. Is he in shape? Has the stamina? In the heat and the humidity, we'll be there in training camp. We'll see, because people have already asked about scheme changes. We're expecting not only tweaks. You've got the new personnel, so there's a lot. There's a lot to digest. We don't have all the answers now because they haven't even had a practice yet. Right. We got the rookie camp coming up this weekend. You can't really, you can't tackle or anything like that, but it's just running through some plays without the veterans. But I'm just so fascinated to see what Gannon could do with this, because you had the note last year and he didn't really have a true nose, and this guy's not even a true nose. I mean, he could do it obviously, but he's just so huge and athletic. There's so much they could do with him if he's in shape that they probably weren't able to do with George. And remember, some people pointed this out. It's true. It's part of the reason. It's not anywhere close to the reason, but there is one of the contributing factors in his low snap count is because of blowouts, and you weren't going to play him 70% of the snaps when the team is up big. but also because he was heavy. That's a fact. Over 360, you're not playing even close to a full game when you're that heavy. That's just not.
Right.
It may work as a left tackle in the National Football League, but it's not going to work as a D tackle.
All right, let's move on to the second round pick, Cam Jurgens at 51 overall. This was a extraordinarily polarizing pick. In fact, I wouldn't even call it polar. I don't think it was greeted warmly when the Eagles made it by the fans.
Oh,
We
yeah.
talked about kind of their over obsession with offensive linemen. He clearly is someone they project to be Jason Kelsey's replacement, but that's the thing. Some people fairly say, well, how did you draft the dude in the second round who's just basically in a red shirt all year? I mean, you need some kind of impact from your player that you draft in the second round. Even though a draft pick is supposed to be about the future, it's hard to just take a guy in the second round and not expect anything out of him this year. So you and I both got similar intel that the Eagles are going to cross train. They're going to give him some snaps at guard and believe he's got the size to be able to play it. He is over 300 pounds. Although for the last few years, the Eagles have had guys like Brandon Brooks and Landon Dickerson and Nate Herbig. I mean, they're kind of used to having 340, 325, 330-pound guards. So this will be a light guard for them, but it is enough size to play guard. But Adam, I'll tell you some of the other intel I got. You tell me what you. The fact that they're saying they think he can play guard is a total and complete projection because this man never played a down of guard in college. He started off as a tight end for like a game or a practice, and then they moved him to center, and he never moved out of center in his entire college career.
Correct. Yeah, no doubt. He's a center who they think can play guard. Look, if in Stoutland we trust. Although you and I talked to several teams, and actually I talked to two line coaches, they don't think he could play guard at this level. Look, it's all what the Eagles think. If they think that he can play guard, and it's all about Jeff Stoutland. Anything he says, I believe it. We have to say it, but
it feels a little bit like wishful thinking to me. Don't it? Like,
I agree. I'm with you, but again, if Sirianni says it, it's one thing. But if the line coach says it, I'm all in. I don't know that he's new to playing offensive line. He was a former tight end and then played center, and was a great story. He's super athletic. The word that I heard when I was gathering information over the weekend is that the one thing, because he's new, he hasn't played center, his whole life as a football player. He played in college, but not in high school, is that he sometimes struggles with traffic. The term is sorting.
Mm-hmm.
It's noticeable. A couple of line coaches told me they'll notice it. Okay, you're gonna throw some stuff. Maybe again, I don't know the teams that he played against, but when they saw this, but there were some times where you go, okay, he needs to see that a little bit better. And two guys saw the same thing. So, but they're all pretty much. This is a pick they were pretty unified in. We know Kelsey was involved, and it's pretty interesting. How about them giving Kelsey a bunch of players who they think will be his replacement? And look, this, I think you said it on our other show. This is now it's officially over for Landon Dickerson being the replacement. Now we know that, and it won't be Seumalo. That's interesting that decision was made.
Right. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with him as far as even if he did have to go in and play guard, and they thought he could, with him being right around 300 pounds and Kelsey being right around 300 pounds, that's really light up the middle of your offensive line. I mean, that to me, you play some of those 3-4 teams, and you're probably going to get your guys pushed back into the quarterback a little bit more than you normally am, or you're going to have trouble running up the middle. But that's to see down the road. I mean, he's clearly a guy that they feel has and even Jason Kelsey, I think people know by now, Jason Kelsey did a lot of homework on the guy, talked to the guy, and felt that of all the players in the draft, I don't know if you saw Jason Kelsey with Adam Lefkoe said, of all the players in the draft, this guy reminds me the most of me. So that's obviously high praise, and the Eagles are smart to lean on Jason Kelsey, but nothing is set in stone or concrete. So I do have some questions about them. Now, from a macro view, Adam, people who say, how could you have addressed offensive line there for the second year in a row, knowing that you needed a corner or a safety, not just for the future, but now or both? Let's talk about how the second round shaped up. The Eagles picked at 51. Yeah. What's that? I'm sorry.
No, funny. I was going to say, it's so funny you mentioned that, because what I wanted to mention is George Pickens went after Jurgens, and Eagles had George Pickens in.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this. We gave you our character stuff that we had. Pickens is one of the guys who had questionable football character, not off the field issues, getting in trouble or anything like that. It's just teams had issues with him, and it is amazing. So many guys dropped in this draft because of character issues.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes I think this stuff is overblown or not fair, but it's hard for me to say it's not true because I know you and I know this is true, and it did hurt him. He went. I'll admit it. He went even later than I thought. My goodness gracious! And
I'll tell you one thing. Yeah. On Pickens, I know. I heard that Mike Tomlin was really a big fan of his tape and thought he was a great player. I'm not sure if the Steelers don't pick him at 52. I'm not sure where he may not have gotten picked until the third round, wherever the Steelers picked, because this guy had rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So, phenomenal that he went there.
Well, here's the interesting thing. So, right after the Steelers pick, Alec Pierce, we know Cosell but not everyone agreed with Greg's assessment of Pierce.
Right.
Pierce went to the Colts, and then Sky Moore, my guy, my favorite receiver for the draft, he went 54 to the Chiefs. See, funny, I would have thought Andy's taken risks on character, and more often than not, he's right. I thought Pickens might go there to the Chiefs. That's actually where I had him penciled in potentially when he started dropping. But look, we're not going to know for years. Look, if he's Kelsey's replacement, right, in 23, and he looks like he's good, no one's going to be Kelsey. I mean, not only will be the Eagles Hall of Fame, there's a real chance that
you mean Tyreek Hill? You mean Tyreek Hill? You mean Tyreek Hill's replacement?
No. I'm talking Cam Jurgens.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were still on Sky Moore. I got confused.
No. I moved on. No. What I'm saying is, I'm just saying in comparison, if Jurgens becomes who they think he is, he's never going to match up to Kelsey. Kelsey is not only be in the Eagles Hall of Fame, he might be a Pro Football of Famer someday. Got a shot at it.
Right.
He doesn't have to be that good, but if he's the starter, if he's healthy for 6 to 8 years, it's a home run at a second round pick. That's the way I would judge it. No one's chasing Kelsey. It's not fair. And by the way, Kelsey's a 6th round pick.
Yeah, no, that's true. Now again, let's look at how the board shaped up in the second round, because the Eagles, it's not like they don't like corners. They had corners there in the second round and safeties that they liked, but the run started early. Now, McCreary went 35th overall. Roger McCreary from Warburn. He was the 3rd pick in the second round. I heard they sort of saw him as a nickel more than an outside, so you can understand. But it doesn't matter. He was out, and he might end up being a nickel for the Titans. So we'll see. Jalen Pitre, the safety from Baylor, goes 2 picks later at 37, and then Kyler Gordon is a guy I know the Eagles liked. He went 39. Andrew Booth, another guy, 42. The corner from Clemson. And then there was one more. Oh, Jaquan Brisker, my guy from Penn State, at 48. So the Eagles picked at 51. That was, what I say, 5 guys that McCreary, Pitre, Gordon, Booth, and who was that last? Oh, and Brisker. 5 guys went before. Now, you can say, well, then trade up. If you understand the need that you have for safety and corner, trade up. But here's the thing. The Eagles gave away their extra 3rd round pick and 3 picks in the Jordan to move up 2 spots for Jordan Davis. They didn't have a whole lot to give if they actually wanted to play on day 3. So I can understand at one point how they got to 51 and Jurgens was clearly the best player available and a guy that they know they're going to need for the future and took him, and why they weren't able to move up. But I could also sit here and say, year after year, it's some excuse for why they couldn't get themselves a corner or a safety. At some point, you've got to keep that all in mind, and they didn't.
Yeah, one thing to add on McCreary, he's got super short arms. He is. I mean, when you look at McDuffie and McCreary's arms are shorter, 28 7/8, which is just that's one reason why you put him as a nickel against the slot corners. But it's out there. I've seen it, and I also know about this. No corners made the Pro Bowl with less than 30-inch arms. So you have to answer that. Now, McDuffie's super competitive, tough, smart, really good football player. And, in your intel, and I'm sure it's right, we both knew that the Eagles really like McDuffie. That's why we mentioned him as in our group of players the Eagles were looking at 15 and 18 had they not made trades. But the thing that is interesting is if you look at McDuffie, he doesn't measure up analytically to what you look for. So it does tell me they don't always do every pick with analytics. So now we got to kind of, because I remember when we were talking, like, this doesn't make sense from an analytical standpoint, but we just had heard they really like McDuffie. It just shows us that not everything they do has something to do with analytics.
True. Although I had to chuckle when I read that Juergens ran the fastest 40-yard dash for a center since ... since Jason Kelce.
Unbelievable. But yeah, Kelce, this is his guy. This is who he said looked like, as you said, resembled him.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Every time you think you've pegged this team, they throw something at you. Like, well, wait a minute, they don't go with guys with short arms. What's going on for here? I don't know.
Well,
it's good to know.
Either way, I think they just knew how badly they needed good, solid corners. And even if they projected him to be a 7-year starter who never made a Pro Bowl but was able to like Sheldon Brown, never made a Pro Bowl. That was a good pick.
Pretty solid player.
It was a very good pick. Solid.
Let me ask you this question. I know people say, well, if he didn't make a Pro Bowl, he wasn't good enough. I don't Pro Bowl, unfortunately, you don't buy, you do.
I don't buy that. What you mean for a first round pick or just
no, just a general, like, okay, so he's made the ball Pro Bowl. If a guy made the Pro Bowl 8 or 9 times, obviously that means something. But if a guy played 7 years, did make a Pro Bowl, but if your eyes tell you the guy's a pretty good football player, then that's what it is.
Yeah,
I think too much Pro Bowls are popularity contest, and the other problem is so many of these writers don't see these players.
Right.
Rodney
McLeod never made a Pro Bowl, did he? Or maybe did he make one? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think he ever made a Pro Bowl.
That's a perfect player.
Really good
player.
Yeah.
Would you not say he's a pretty solid football player?
Yeah. I wouldn't bank on Josh Sweat making a Pro Bowl. He may be a 6 to 7 sack guy every year. He was the best defensive lineman for the Eagles last year. Most consistent pass rusher.
Yeah, good story development for as knocked as the Eagles are for not developing players good enough. He's been pretty good. It's a pretty damn good story.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Yeah, no, I don't buy stuff. I personally don't even think you have to have your first round pick make the Pro Bowl to be successful because it depends on where you pick them. If you're picking 26th or 27th, again, like the hit rate on that is not even as high, not nearly as high as top 10. So, that's people just wanting a little bit too much.
Although, look, to finish this off, it would be nice if the lack of Pro Bowlers on defense. I get it. It's fair. It's absolutely open season on it, but don't make it the end all. Oh, if this guy doesn't make the Pro Bowl during his career, then he's not good enough. Right. I wouldn't go. The people watch our show generally know what the heck they're looking at, like we do. We know what we're looking at. We know if the guy's a good enough football player, and if not, it's the tape. We talked to Cosell, Q&A, former general managers, personnel directors we've had on our shows over the years. They know what they're looking at, and if the guy's not good enough, we'll tell you. And it's not hard over a series of games and years. You go, okay, this guy's either good enough or not. That's the bottom line.
Right. Sometimes you are where you were. Like Miles Sanders is probably never going to make a Pro Bowl unless he just starts all 16 games. The offense is great, but there's always good running backs who put up a lot of yards, so it'll always be a struggle. But he's not a bust. He's not a disappointing player. For the injuries maybe, but when he's out there, he plays well for a second-round pick. Sometimes people put a little bit too much into that. All right, so let's move on because I basically gave you the context there. There were we gave you a lot of corners and safeties who were there. They went before the Eagles picked. The Eagles couldn't move up or else they would have had nothing to work with on day 3 at all. And that's why you saw on day 3, they moved down to get a few picks. And then after they picked Juergens at 51, the only other safeties that went were Cam Taylor-Britt in the second round to Nebraska. I have no idea how the Eagles felt about him. And then 62nd overall, Brian Cook from Cincinnati, the safety, went to the Chiefs. It's my understanding that they had him more that not second round guy for them. So now at the top of the third round, a guy, Martin Emerson, cornerback from Mississippi State, went to Cleveland. That was a guy they did like. So they obviously missed out by
okay.
not taking him in the side. I mean, do they love him that high? Who knows? But and then of course there were some linebackers as well that went that they you know, I think Christian Harris made it all the way to the third round, which was hard to believe. But then again, who would have thought, Adam, as we go on to the third pick there, that Nakobe Dean was going to be there when the Eagles picked 83rd overall? That's incredible.
So here's the additional intel we have on him.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, according to a Georgia football source, is during Kirby Smart's career and his assistants, the guys who have been there with him forever, one of the best players on offense or defense they've had, and one of the best leaders they had. He's super smart, intellectually, and test. Unbelievable leadership, incredible tackler. Now, here's an additional nugget, which I picked up from a scout who was at the pro day. Apparently, his pro day workout was terrible. This is where he had the pectoral injury. Here's the story of the pectoral injury. I didn't know any of this until over the weekend, but he had a pectoral injury leading up to training for the draft, leading up to the pro day. I don't know if it was 3 weeks before, 6 weeks. I have no idea. I just know that in scouting, this was known. And he was not himself at this pro day. He just was not. When I say bad, it might have been average for other guys, but for a special football player, for him, it just wasn't good enough. Now, could that have contributed because he did not work out the combine? Could that be? He was there, got measured and everything. 229 actually at the combine, and he's under 6 feet. That's another problem for teams. You don't see a lot of linebackers being drafted high in first year rounds who aren't at least 6 feet. But
right.
It's hard to quantify. If you had everything, the intel that you had on his injuries, folks, if you haven't listened to our post-draft coverage of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Geoff had some great information on all the minor injuries he's had. I know he hasn't missed a lot of time, but if you add everything up, he wasn't going in the first round. I would say that's pretty accurate. I still can't believe he went in the second round. I think that was a mistake, but not only by the Eagles, it's by other teams. Now I understand because all these trades, the Eagles only could do certain things, but this is a special elite football player. He's not 240. You got to live with that. And he does have these minor injuries. As one source said, he's beat up physically from a bunch of injuries. I don't know how much he'll practice, whether practice fully every day, limited, whatever they want to do. We'll see when we get to the regular season. We got to get through where we're at now. But This is a super special football player. Our folks who watch college football more than you and I, we're with you people. We know he's special. I try not to throw that around unless I know it's true. And talking to so many sources on this guy, I'm thinking, wow, the Eagles actually drafted a linebacker special. I find this hard to believe, but I thought Joe Banner made a great point. He put it on Twitter. He said the feeling with this kid is just like when they drafted Trot. Trot had the knee issue, got medical red flag coming out of college, and Trot, obviously, as you well know, as you covered him for many years, we know him very well. He overcame that knee issue. It would pop up over his career every now and then, but the guy overcame it to have a terrific career. And Dean's a special player. Now, you to sum this up, you worry about the injuries, but you don't worry about anything else because he does everything well. And here's another note on his role. We checked into this. If he's healthy and he's doing everything he should, he's got the defense down. He'll be a 3-down linebacker for them. He won't be 2. It'll be three downs.
Well, that would be so.
Should be.
The Eagles, the Eagles last year or two have made. We've talked about this. They've made a ton of modifications to how they run their training, their programs, their practice times, their training camp lengths, their travel. They've done a ton of things that sometimes don't go over well with the fans. People complain about training camp they don't hit, right? They say, well, how can you only practice for an hour? Then, and I get it. I understand.
Right.
It ain't your father's NFL. I get it.
Right.
But last year, which was really the first full year, I think, with Ted Rath, Tom Hunkley, the newer sports science and medical guys, they were pretty successful from a staying healthy standpoint. You're not going to prevent being 100%. You're not going to prevent like somebody breaking an arm, right? But soft tissue, keeping guys healthy, being there for the playoff. I mean, they got Miles Sanders back into a playoff game despite some very long odds of him being able to play. Now, he wasn't, he had the hand wasn't wrapped. I mean, it's whatever. He played. That's the point. That they did some pretty good things medically last year. Landon Dickerson had a little bumps and bruises, but played. Jason Kelsey had some bumps and bruises that he deals with, but he played all 16 games. Fletcher Cox. I mean, this is a far cry from where they were 3 to 5 years ago when veterans left and right were getting hurt. We talked about the whole messaging. We talked about Darren Sproles and the injuries being way longer than the team was supposing. So it's been good. You hope it continues. I don't like to use 1 year and say all is cured.
Oh, yeah.
But it is because they now
changed.
Right. They draft a player like Dickerson last year. They got a player like Dean this year.
Yeah.
Jordan Davis, who's going to take a lot of work in the weight room and training room, that they have catered their new program to. So we'll have to kind of see as this goes forward. Is this plan really working like we think it is, or was it just a 1 year kind of wonder thing? You've mentioned this before, and it's really worth hitting on. Ted Rath came over from the Rams, correct?
Yeah,
the Rams historically, while he was there, had the least or the most healthy team while he was there, and the Rams do a lot of that stuff with McVay as far as much shorter practices and specific training regimens. So all that ties in. There was one other point I wanted to make on.
I just want to add.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Geoff and I, we were so alarmed at what we were hearing from agents who had players on the Eagles, and we actually did an off-season show after the 18 season, after 19, 18, whatever it was, 18 or
19. 18. It was after the 18 season. Yeah.
We devoted one full show because it was. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. For those of you who are only with us a year or so, or if you're new to our show, welcome. If you're new, we crushed the Eagles on this thing. We just tell the truth. We're not homers. You guys know us. We tell the truth. We give them credit when they get it right, and when they don't, we tell the truth. They were struggling figuring out how to get these guys on the field. It's sports science is one thing, but there's a way that you do it. And as Geoff just said, as crazy it is for a team to only practice an hour. They actually, I was at one of the practices. I was so pissed off last summer. It was like 50 some odd minutes. I'm, what the hell? What did I know?
We feel cheated, right? Sometimes it's like, wait, 30 minutes and all you did was like 7-on-7s. Are you kidding me?
It was annoying. And you and I looked at each other like, well, what is this?
Right.
But hey, it works. What am I getting mad at them for? They got it right just because I wanted to see more practice, but selfishly. But they've done this. Ted Rath, he came from LA, and what it is the finish this off is they have the least amount of players listed on the injury report pretty much all year, every year. I don't know, and it's not just Ted Rath who left to go to the Eagles. It's whatever they're doing. I remember the Chargers telling me they did every single study to manual. For years, the Chargers have had the worst injury situations.
Mm-hmm.
They told me that they've done everything every study, they've changed this up and that up. Well, in the summer, the Chargers are about 15 minutes from the Rams at the training camps. They might as well just take their practice and see what the Rams are doing. Anyway.
All right, good stuff. We're going to get into the day 3 picks. First, attention. The mud will fly again on Trenton Avenue, one of Philadelphia's largest and most unique spring festivals is back on Saturday, May 14th in Fishtown and East Kensington from noon till 6 p.m. Philadelphia Federal Credit Union Kensington Derby and Arts Festival makes a grand return with an all-day event that's expected to draw thousands of people to the great outdoors and space out along a massive 3-mile route spanning Trenton Ave from Norris to Frankfurt. All along the way, families, foodies, artists, and inventors will experience the city's wackiest celebration of local flavor. We're looking forward to seeing you and your family there. That is the festival, the Philadelphia Federal Credit Union Kensington Derby and Arts Festival. So sounds like a great event. I'm sure everybody's going to love it out there in Kensington. All right, let's talk about the day 3 guys, Adam, as we move on from Nakobe Dean. This was a kind of a weird situation, right? We talked. The Eagles didn't have a whole lot of picks after those trades, and then they wound up trading down to acquire a few more picks. They get this what I expect to be will be a Sam, like an outside linebacker type, the Hassan Reddick backup type in Kyron Jackson. And then Johnson, Kyron Johnson, and no relation to Tyrone Johnson, right? From 97.5 The Fanatic.
Buddy Tyrone, yeah, it's funny.
Or Teron Jackson, who's already on the Eagles. But anyway, and then, of course, they get another guy in the 6th round, tight end Greg Calcaterra.
Grant. It's actually Grant. Just so you know, Grant.
I'm just gonna stop talking now because I can't get any name right. Yeah, Grant.
No, because what happened? Some knucklehead hit me on Twitter. Can't you guys get the name right? I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, that was all me. I must have called him Greg every single time. It's Grant.
So wait a minute. They have Kyron Johnson, Lane Johnson, Patrick Johnson. Is there another Johnson?
Teron Jackson. Yeah.
They have two Jacksons. All right, so they have 2 Jacksons and 3 Johnsons. Okay, Tyree and Teron.
Well, they don't have a Peters anymore, but they still have 3 Johnsons and a Cox.
But they have a Boston Scott, or as John Hanson calls him, Scott Boston.
Scott Boston.
I love that. That's one of my favorites. Okay, so I screwed up. Someone pointed out to me. I appreciate it.
I think it was me, by the way. I don't think it was you. I think it was me.
No. Calcaterra was at the combine.
Oh, that's where I screwed up. Okay,
I saw at the Senior Bowl because he had the SMU helmet, because I know the SMU helmet with the horse.
Right.
He is an F back. An F back is off the ball tight end.
Yep.
It's like some teams use the H, some teams use the F. They use an F in this offense.
Mm-hmm.
They use the Y in this offense. We've talked about the Y for 3 years now. Every team uses the Y. It's an inline tight end.
Right.
But he's super athletic. He's just undersized.
Mm-hmm.
But I like what Sirianni said, and there's so many things you can do now with an athletic tight end. Because if you're playing 12, you could keep Goddard in as the Y and Calcaterra as the move tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is just what he gives you the option to do. Now he was at the combine 6'3" and 7/8, 241. 241 is really small for a tight end. But he's got decent arm length. Not great, but decent. Wings, decent. He did the bench press. His 40 time was a little bit better. Actually, he's better than average, certainly, at 4.62.
Mm-hmm.
His shuttle time was also very good. Yeah, he didn't do the vertical. He actually did not do the vertical. His 10-yard split, I'm sorry, was very good. He didn't do the vertical, the broad jump. But what you do like is he's athletic. He gives him another option. I have not heard that he's a great blocker, so we'll effort a little bit more to hear if the tape shows is he a willing blocker. There's some guys like Ertz was not a good blocker ever, but he became a positional blocker where I could contort my body this way and at least hit the guy. Zach, he made the effort. He was new to it. So we'll get a little bit more on Grant Calcaterra as a blocker, but this just gives you more passing options here for the Eagles.
That's right. We'll see. I kind of look forward to. I feel like he's going to be one of those guys because he's a pass catching tight end who is going to. It's going to really wow the fans and the media in the OTAs and the training camps. It's going to be like 7-on-7. He's going to be going up against the Eagles, third string linebackers and safeties and catch a bunch of passes. But you're right. I heard the same thing about the blocking. Not so great, but we're used. Listen. We were surprised by Dallas Goedert because he also wasn't considered a great blocker only because he wasn't asked to do it. Now, I don't know if Calcaterra was asked to block at SMU and didn't do a good job, or if they're assuming he's not a good blocker because he wasn't asked to do it. It's hard to make. Greg Cosell talks about making that assumption all the time at certain positions about what they're asked to do.
True.
So we'll see. Now, Adam, where were the Eagles picking before they traded back to get those picks? Remind me again, were they in the 5th round or did they trade down in the 6th round?
I don't have that. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Because I wanted to remember their original slot because there were a couple of corners, I was told, who went after they had traded down a couple of defensive backs that they were hoping maybe might be on the board when they picked again, which was that was the Karan Johnson pick. So I forget what number that was at this point overall.
Yeah, Johnson.
But these are day 3 guys. These are day 3 guys. So even if they had there's just absolutely no. It's not like you're. Oh man, I can't believe I missed out on this 5th round corner. Right. You don't know if he's going to even make the team.
One thing I want to add on Johnson is I didn't mention this on the previous show. He was at the Senior Bowl and he did look really good.
Mm-hmm.
And that the Eagles were there, and that really helped them get put on the map because he had a good senior year. Then the Pro Bowl, the Pro Day workout at the 4.4 is really good. Now, you're not drafting him the 6th or drafting him because I don't know if he was getting drafted. In fact, I'm sure he wasn't getting drafted before the season, and then he had a new role because he played with his hand in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
He put himself on the map this season, and a super high character kid again.
Right.
But the question is he going to? We know he's a very good special teams player. That's another thing we could add here. Really, really
Mm-hmm.
good. But the
Mm-hmm.
question is, could he ever get on the field as a defender and not just special teams? That's something we can't ask, but we would ask it. We can't answer it, but we have to see. But you do wonder when you're drafting 6th or 7th round picks, what is their upside for this player? What could his role potentially be over time? You talked about backup Sam, maybe so.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 4-year deal on him, so we'll have to see. But I don't know, like Teron Jackson, who they drafted last year. He's another backup Sam guy, and he didn't, he played a little bit. I know Cosell liked him. He played a little bit every now and then kind of
Mm-hmm.
disappeared. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many backup Sams do they need?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. It's a new position for them. Um, it depends on how sort of comfortable you are with what you saw from Patrick Johnson last year, who
Him
played
too.
that role. And remember, they actually were playing him sort of 50-50 with Jannard Avery at the beginning of the year against Atlanta, and I think even week 2 they tried to give him a bunch of snaps, and it didn't. They eventually settled into Jannard Avery is gonna play that first and second down role.
Right, and Jackson did get some snaps at the end, but my point is, I know they could play both.
Right.
I'm interested to find out what changes they'll have with their alignment, not just if they're 5-2 or not. That's not really what I'm after. Because
Right.
I'm sure they'll do some of that. They're not going to completely junk it, and if they do
Mm-hmm.
if they change anything at all. I'm talking about how they're going to deploy guys or coverages are different. You were talking about maybe they play more zone,
Yeah.
but are there things they can do to take advantage of the skill sets of these guys? Because last year, I get it was the first year,
Mm-hmm.
and Gannon didn't quite have the talent level of players that he was looking for, which is
Right.
not why he didn't quite run everything that he wanted. But you do wonder, these guys have the ability to rush the passer. Is there a way they could free these guys up? Because their pass rush was anemic last season. Let's call
Yeah,
it like it is.
but we had Trey Thomas do a great breakdown of why the pass rush was anemic, and when you give a quarterback can complete a pass on you in 2.5 seconds or less, when a quarterback knows what he wants to do with the ball,
True.
as soon as
True.
he sees the alignment, it's tough. Because again, that was largely the same group that the year prior had led the NFL in sacks. So I don't think they all just got worse. I think that
Their
was a
D-line
function
did,
of the defense.
yeah. Their
And the
D-line
issue
did.
is, the issue is that right now, as we record this podcast, the back end doesn't look a whole lot better. Yeah, they look a little better at linebacker,
No.
but that's, again, corner, safety, and they know it. They know that they have to go out and make moves there.
Oh, Honey Badger, what do you know on him? People have asked. I know you
just from calling around and talking to different teams, some I talked to also could use a safety. The sense is that he has his heart set on going to New Orleans. So New Orleans, I don't think drafted a safety in this past draft. I'd have to go back and look. If they did, it wasn't, in the first 3 or 4 rounds or anything like that. Certainly not with their first 2-round picks. I don't think they did. So I think people are kind of expecting, no, they didn't draft the safety at all, right?
Yeah, they drafted the Taylor kid, the corner in the 2nd round. No, they didn't draft the safety. Huh.
Yeah, the sense that other people around the league get that is that he wants to go home, play for the Saints, and that if the Saints, revisit discussions, maybe meet him a little bit more, then he'll go there. So, we know the Eagles have been interested. We know they've talked to him. But remember, the Eagles just gave $100 million to what's his face, the wide receiver, AJ Brown, with $57 million guaranteed. So my sense is the Eagles would like to have him, but are not going to sit there and get into a bidding war to get him. I know that's disappointing for some people, but I mean, Howie has been very honest with the fans about how he's looking to build this team. He's not unaggressive. He certainly has chased some free agents this offseason, but he's also not putting all the chips on the table saying, I'm trying to win the Super Bowl. I'm trying to make the type of moves that say I can win the Super Bowl this year. He has said he's not making those type of moves right now.
By the way, we got a lot of these questions. I'm going to give you my free agent list. There are a ton of corners out there, journeyman types. Yeah. Eagles do not need a slot corner, absolutely positively. They need an outside. They need 2 outside corners. What they need.
Right
here, they're not on Kyle Fuller. I was told, barring a change in heart. Trey Waynes is out there. He's had some injuries. He could play on the outside. Forget Bryce Callahan, slot only. Kenzie Alexander could do both. Joe Hayden's out there. It was near the end of a great career. Xavier Rhodes, too many injuries. Richard Sherman's, he's older, very, obviously. He's only his own corner. AJ Boye could play nickel, which is probably, now he's in his 30s, his best position. TJ Carey, who they liked last year, could play a variety of positions. Safety, corner. Kevin King, problem, major, and I mean major injury history. He's really long, but you're kind of limited with him. That's a guy, based on the way that they've sort of attacked the free agency market over the years. They don't typically like to bring in guys who are nothing but hurt. He's talented, but he's been hurt a lot. A guy that I know they like pre-draft, but they never really chased him after that is Fabian Moreau, who's fast and got good size. I haven't heard his name attached to them, and that's pretty much everyone else is kind of nickel. But look, giving you all those names, there's plenty of guys. And folks, I know it's hard, and you want to be, you don't want to be patient. You want that guy now. Just remember, the season doesn't start till September. I keep telling myself that when I look at when I look at these teams, when they have holes, and as we've pointed out ad nauseum, everybody knows who's an Eagles fan. They made that trade for Darby in what was it in
2017, August, in the middle of training camp,
which is crazy. So, and it's not over, folks. Free agency's not even close to being over, and there are a lot of guys. Now, see, here's the thing. Now that the draft is done, the leverage is with the club. It's no longer with the player.
Correct. That'll be interesting. Remember, they did pick up an extra third-round pick in that trade with the Saints. So I know a lot of people would like to see, potentially see that pick maybe packaged next year if the Eagles need to go up and get a quarterback. But I mean, I don't think that's a make or break deal. You can always figure out a way to sweeten the deal with a future third or something like that. You could take that third right this summer, right? That third round pick next year and ship that off to anybody for an adequate corner like they did with Ronald Darby. We'll be all over that around training camp.
Yeah. And then safety, it's real thin. Jaquaski Tart, who's 30-ish, who's a longtime starter for the Niners, is more of a box player. Deshaun Gibson, who's really smart, who's a journeyman safety, was with the Bears most recently. Jaleel Adai's been with a bunch of teams. He's in his 30s. And then it's just a bunch of back-end guys. Andrew Adams, who was here before. That's it. It's real light. Now, what's going to happen over the next week to 10 days, at corner and safety, some veterans are going to be cut because now they've lost their job. And there's also, another thing. Chuck Clark, you have to look at him. He's with Baltimore.
Right.
They just drafted 2 safeties. He's been a starter for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I don't see how they don't move him. Now, I understand the trade. We'll get into one more thing before we get out of here. I know the draft has happened, and you don't see usually there are very few post-draft trades. Every once in a while there is, but with the 2 guys added, remember, in fact, it's crazy. Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton added, of course, and then they also drafted. They've got Clark, Marcus Williams, and Hamilton. Obviously, long term, it's going to be Hamilton, Williams. They're just no longer going to start. So my first thought was, and I know Clark signed an extension a couple of years ago, and I think he wants. The last I'd heard, because it was a good deal at the time, but he may want a little bit more money. We'll see. Well, he's just a guy that, as we look for players that could be moved. I'm not saying they're going to move him, but how many say you can't pay everybody, and you just spent a first rounder on Hamilton, and you're paying Williams $14 million a season. Well, where's Chuck Clark fit in?
Right. That's a great question. I don't think the Eagles are going to sign a starting free agent safety. They might trade for one, but I think that they're going to bank on Marcus Epps and Anthony Harris as their starters, Kavon Wallace as a backup, and I can see them signing an older safety as a backup. But I would imagine that they're set right now, unless they make a trade on Epps and Harris. I just don't know if there's a good enough safety out there that you sign that's any better than other than Tyrann Mathieu, who I don't really know that they're going to get. I don't see the sense in it,
Right, and then
other than getting depth.
Because if you look at the teams that drafted safeties, Lewis Seen, the Minnesota, Nick Cross to the Colts, Dax Hill. See, now here's another thing. If you look at some of these teams who drafted safety, the layup obvious one was Chuck Clark with the Ravens, because now he went from being to end last season their most tenured safety. Now they add one guy they're paying out the butt, and so to speak, paying $14 million a year, and then Hamilton's mid first round pick. These guys got to play. I mean, I would look at Cincinnati. You talk about trades, as you say. Any team that drafted a safety in the first 2 rounds, I'd look to see who they have. And that my first note was during the draft, like, oh, this is not good for Chuck Clark. Once they drafted Kyle Hamilton. So then here's another question. So before we get out of here, so Rager and Dillard were not traded. We know that several weeks ago, Rager's agent was given permission to seek a trade. Nothing happened. What do you think happens here, if anything?
I'm going to tell you what I think. But first, Adam, I'm going to tell people to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They are enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check out all their great work at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you hop in out there to Sky Motor Cars in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, this Rager thing, right? So I thought Howie's press conference was pretty interesting because in a very Howie Roseman way, he sort of did not answer directly a question. Somebody asked him about Jalen Rager and, is he available? Is there teams calling?
Did he ask to be traded? Is it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If he asked to be traded, and his answer was, hey, Jalen Rager is a Philadelphia Eagle right now. Okay. So that's all you need to know. The fact that he did not close the book, slam it down, say no, none of that. So, listen, we know this. We know we had reported the teams have called the Eagles about Jalen Rager, checking in on his availability prior to the draft. And we know that there are teams who just went through the draft and didn't get the wide receiver that they were looking for. A lot of teams need wide receivers. Not everybody got the one that they want. So you can imagine calls will continue to go in just to see where the Eagles are at with Jalen Rager. And now that there's more urgency for teams who missed out on wide receivers, you will probably see a little bit more of a dialogue go on, I imagine, between those teams and the Eagles about Jalen Rager. And and Howie could say Jalen Rager's an Eagle. And listen, I think Howie, you should take him at some of his word, because as you reported last year, going into the last year's draft, Howie got calls about Zach Ertz. People
they did.
Not only calling, but he had an offer, and he basically said, Zach Ertz is an Eagle, and he didn't take anybody's offer. Now that wound up being, in retrospect, probably to Howie's detriment, because when it finally came down to trading Zach Ertz, what did he get? He got
fifth and Gowan.
And Tay Gowan, and then Ertz. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say they only got prior to the draft. I don't know what happened during the draft. I just know this: during the spring, the best offer they got was a 6th-round pick. As much as they wanted to move him, they were very open to it, to say the least. Kelsey lost that bet, I guess, with Ertz that wouldn't be traded.
Yeah, one
that's funny. Even one of his best friends on the team thought he'd be traded, but they wound up trading with trade deadline, obviously. But this situation's different.
But Zach signed a contract this offseason that's big enough that it could have helped the Eagles in a comp pick formula to get maybe a 4, because it was a pretty decent contract for a guy's age. So, I mean, I don't know. Did holding on to Zach Ertz really help him all that much? Who knows? But we know. But the point I was trying to make was, how Howie is. He wants to be the guy in every trade that comes out and says, I won that trade, So we'll see what happens here with Jalen Rager. I don't sense that he's just going to give Jalen Rager away no matter what. Even though fans would like that.
Okay, so what you just said, that's what I thought last year. Why he didn't move Ertz during the draft. Now, I knew, you and I knew that he didn't get anywhere close to what they thought. And the difference is, first of all, Ertz was coming off of ankle surgery. He had a tough season in 2020. And teams were unsure how much he had left, and obviously had a lot left. He did a great job after the trade. He showed that he was healthy prior to the trade, and he got a nice 3-year deal to come back to Arizona. Good for him. And he clearly could play. Now with Rager, I don't know what the Eagles could possibly be asking for in a trade here. whoever called or whatever conversations they had. But you make a great point. This is why it doesn't happen much. I looked into it during the draft to see if there. Every couple of years, you see a guy traded after the draft, and then maybe it's the player and the agent asked for a trade because someone's going to take their job, whatever the case may be. But there's not very many, and we'll see what happens. There's just no role now for Rager. That's what we've been talking about for weeks. I mean, now what is he, the fifth? At best he's the fifth.
And again, that illustrates two things: why there will be a market for Jalen Rager, and why there should be on Howie's end a dialogue about moving on, because you've already added AJ Brown. He's your number one receiver. You've got Devontae Smith. You want to call him 1A or 2, whatever, right? You have referred your coach, your head coach, who's the one whose opinion really matters most in this, because he's the one that designs the plays and calls them, right? He clearly believes, through his own words, that Quez Watkins is now third in line. At first, Quez Watkins was number 2 in line to him, right? And the stats say it too, by the way. He had more receiving yards than Jalen Rager. So Quez Watkins is now your 3. So you're looking at Jalen Rager as either your 4 or tied for 4, because they also went and signed Zach Pascal. Okay. I mean, come on. You don't draft a guy number 1 or first round to potentially be your 4th wide receiver. That's no good for the team. That's no good for the player. So if somebody picks up the phone and gives you an offer, you should consider it. I mean, like, what good does it do you to have the guy sitting there, I think you just said, collecting dust on the bench while other guys that you have on the team are playing? What good does that do for the team or the player?
I can't believe that they're not able to move him. Now, see, again, we don't know what the Eagles are looking for. I said all along a 4 should be able to do it, but I'm not Roseman. I don't know what he's asking for. Mm-hmm. And the things we've not heard from other teams yet, maybe we will in the next week or so, what they may want to offer if they do it, or if they offer it at all during the draft or before it. But the fact of the matter, he's still in the roster. They're acting like he's going to be here this season. We'll have to see about that. To finish it off, it's just a first-round pick who's not going to really play very much. What sense does it make? I know they don't want to give him away. No team wants to give a former first-round pick away. But how much leverage do you have when he hasn't really put up good numbers yet? So it's one thing if you're throwing – it's come off a 50-catch season where they still had questions. Maybe he's inconsistent. I mean, he didn't even contribute last season, where he showed some flashes in year 1.
Yeah. So very, very, very interesting situation here. So we'll see what happens. And sort of the same deal with Andre Dillard. Now, you had said pretty recently that you had heard that Dillard's put on some pounds and maybe was going to take a few reps at guard, see what they can do there. And I bristled at it. I said, well, when you're a guard, all you see is bull rushes, and that was his biggest obstacle. And now he's going to, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I saw actually on the internet, I guess he posted a video of himself shirtless after a workout. And then it said he said he's 325 pounds now.
That's
or something like that. And oh my God, he did look I mean, he looked bulked up. Yeah. So I was like, wow, okay.
I wondered if they asked him to do that. I just had heard from a league source that they're strongly considering giving some reps at guard. Again, as I said, that when I put this out on our show, whenever recently, I didn't say he's going to get 50% of the reps there. He might still be 90 left tackle, 10 guard. I don't know what their plan is and how many reps, but just something they're strongly considering doing. And he's put this weight on. So we'll see. And look, he didn't get traded. One NFC team we know in their calls leading up to the draft was actually, they really wanted him, but the Eagles, it never came up to an offer. And I'm also told that team, it was an NFC team if I recall correctly, whatever, the team filled out their left tackle role within the first 3 or 4 rounds, and they don't feel like they needed it to make a trade for a left tackle, so that's over. Mm-hmm. So, look, one thing though, and you were talking about the last show, it may be overkill on the offensive line. I mean, you make a fair point. I know others have said this. No team's deeper. It's great to have this depth. There's no question about it. But at some point, if Isaac Seumalo is not starting, he's on the last year of his deal, making about $5 million. What is the point for paying a guy as a backup $5 million? If he doesn't,
I don't know. We were actually joking, you and I wrote it down, that let's say, I mean, Landon Dickinson, he ain't going anywhere. So he's
No.
probably your starting left guard. Now, maybe, as
Probably.
you just mentioned,
100%.
yeah, he is their left guard.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Now, right guard, maybe Sayamalu gets a shot to beat out Jack Driscoll. I don't know. We'll talk about that. But let's say, for argument's sake, that Driscoll is going to be their right guard.
Well,
And
just
I'm just saying, let's say for argument's sake.
Okay.
I want to make a point about the backup situation here.
Okay.
Let's say Driscoll is the right guard and they still have Sayamalu. You're looking at a second string offensive line that would be Andre Dillard at left tackle, a first round pick, Isaac Sayamalu at left guard, a former starter, right, who started
Pretty good
well.
player.
Yeah, Nate Herbig as your center, who's a pretty good backup center, although he struggles with the snap, but he's still pretty good. He got himself a contract for 1 year. Your right guard would be actually Herbie would probably be your right guard, and then the kid they just drafted would be your center. My fault. The kid they drafted was Juergens would be your center. Herbig as your right guard, and LaRaven Clark as your right tackle. Now tell me, Dillard, Sayamalu, Juergens, Herbig, and Clark isn't probably as good of an offensive line as maybe some of the poorer offensive lines in the offense in the NFL, right? I mean, like there are teams that would say, you know what? I think that line might be better than like the Giants last year might have said, I think that line might be better than my line.
Other than a left tackle, yeah.
As a collective line, right.
No, that's a fair point. And Sayamalu, $4.978 million. You can't justify him as a backup.
No.
Now Sirianni talked about him in his press conference. Is he still the starter? But we know this. You've said this a million times. The O-line coach loves Jack Driscoll like his own son. I'm not saying Driscoll will be the starter at right guard, but to me, with Isaac, now it's not like Driscoll's not been hurt. He's been hurt quite a bit too.
Right.
And Isaac's a good player, just solid. Just a solid football player, but he's now in the final year of his deal. His deal, like 20 of these contracts the Eagles have done, has voidables. It voids after after 22. Why not open it up? Why not?
It's a great question. I guess that's a question that will be answered down the road. Maybe soon. Who knows? Certainly there's going to be a lot of activity going on in the next few weeks. So look forward to covering that all. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Hunter Brody. You can check out his work on YouTube. His channel is called Sports Talk with Broads. He's got a website called broadsmedia.com. Make sure you catch that. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.